Hi, and welcome to the Caffeinated Quilter on YouTube. I'm Emily Brooklaw, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the little house blocks, which you will be using for the quilt behind me called Fiesta Time Flowers. And today we're talking specifically about making these fun little blocks right here that kind of have a nice little pointy top to them. So you're going to be using your squares of fabric, and I'm going to show you how to put these together, and I'm also going to show you how to save the little cut-off triangles that you get when you're making this kind of block, so that by the time you're done with this big beautiful quilt, you also have a million little pinwheels to make a fun little baby quilt to go along with it. So make sure you've got your squares of fabric all cut out and your rotary cutter handy, and we're going to get started. So for today, when we're making the little house blocks, you're going to need 2 of your sizes of squares that you cut last week. You're going to need your 3.5 inch colored squares and your smaller 2-inch white squares. So to get started, what we're going to do is take these white ones and you're going to mark a little pencil line on them. So take a small ruler if you have one, or a big one, and you're going to line up on the diagonal and take your pencil and draw a little line exactly on there. Okay, and then you're going to line that up with one of your colored squares. You're going to line them up exactly together like this, so that your diagonal goes from one side of the square to another. You don't want to do it like this. That's just going to give you a mess. So you're going to put this one here, and I like to pin it. You certainly don't have to if you don't want to. And I recommend, if you have like an applique foot or an open foot, to use that when you're sewing this line. A 1/4 inch foot sometimes can kind of get jammed up in all this extra fabric, so it's just a nice thing to have if you want to do it that way, but you're going to sew directly on this line. Now I'm going to give you a little trick in case. One of the things I found was kind of fun when you're making these blocks is you're going to end up with a lot of little tiny leftover triangles, and you can actually sew them a 1/4 inch to make little tiny half square triangle blocks that you can then make into pinwheels or anything else. So when I made the first version of Fiesta Time Flowers, I just saved all these in a pile and then just kind of sewed them together when I had time. But if you really want to make it come out perfect, what you could do right now is a little bit of an extra step, but measure in 1/2 inch from that first line you drew and draw a second line on there. This is totally optional, and just if you want to make extra half square triangles. Then you would take this to your sewing machine, sew once here, and then a second line there, and then you would just cut in the middle of it. So I'm just going to show you the basic way to do it today, but that's just an extra little step you could do if you want to make a whole bunch of little bitty pinwheels. So after you've gone to your sewing machine, you're going to have a nice line sewn on your pencil line, and then what you're going to do is take your little ruler again, line up your sewing line with their 1/4 inch dots on the ruler, and then you're going to trim this down to be your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And see, that gives you that fun little scrap that I was just telling you about that you can turn into little bitty pinwheels if you're so inclined. So you can set those aside and save them or trash them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to press this seam. I prefer to press this one open. I find it results in less bulk up here in the tip. Certainly if you're a fan of pressing away from the white, you could do that too, but I like to press it open. And I'm just finger pressing it here, but I would recommend that when you're going along doing this, I would just do up a bunch of these chain pieced and then press them nice and flat with your iron. So after you've got a bunch of these done, and you can totally chain piece these and make it go faster, you're going to do the same thing with a couple more squares. Draw that line on there. And then when you're pinning these, if you choose to pin, I like to put an extra pin just to hold that seam allowance down there. So obviously everybody likes to pin differently, but this is just how I do it. And I like to sew from this edge that doesn't have the seam allowance. I like to start here and go into this area where it's a little bit thicker instead of trying to start here and having it jam up under the needle. So once you have done that, you will end up with a sewn line here. And so now you're going to do the same thing again. Just line this up where you've got your 1/4 inch markings right on your seam allowance. Trim off this little triangle, save them if you want to. And then you're going to press this open again. I'm just going to finger press it here. But again, I would hit this with an iron because the flatter you have this, the better off, the easier it's going to be when you start sewing all these blocks together. And then once you've got it pressed flat, it's going to look just like this on the back. You're going to notice white up here at the top. This is good. You don't want your triangle point touching your cut edge. You want this to be just like that, where it's right on the 1/4 inch. And that is so that when you sew these blocks together, you'll have a nice little perfect point right there. So when you see that extra fabric, that's exactly how you want to do it. And then you're just going to keep on doing this over and over and over again until you have all your blocks cut out and snowballed and all ready to go. And then you can start putting them together with your diamonds and stuff to see what color combinations you like. And next week, I will show you how to take these and your hexagons and diamonds that you cut out in last lesson and turn them into a completed Fiesta Time Flowers quilt block. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, Emily@thecaffeinatedquilter.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And if you are following along and quilting along, I would love it if you'd use the hashtag Fiesta Time Flowers, QAL, so that we can all see your progress and cheer you on. Thanks so much for watching.